At the heart of any successful organization, you'll find good managers who are making important decisions every day. Managers make sure that projects are completed, that work is of the highest possible quality, that employees are motivated and engaged, and that policies and procedures are followed. In fact, managers do so many things that management is more a series of key skill sets rather than one specific role. Good management is the use of key skills and practices, correctly applied at the right time, to help the organization reach its highest potential. The good news is that management skills can be learned and improved. Throughout this course, we'll explore specific strategies for honing your management skills. While there's a range of key management skills and practices, they fall into mainly three areas: managing performance, managing people, and managing the business. Within each of these areas are specific competencies. Throughout the course, we'll delve into each of the competencies, and I'll cover strategies you can use to improve your effectiveness as a manager. It's important to understand that management has come a long way since its initial roots. Management was conceived during the Industrial Revolution, when factories necessitated organizing the work of large groups of people. Early management theories focused on controlling workers. There was an assumption that people inherently resisted work and needed to be prodded or even forced to do a good job. Management occurred by using power over workers through structures like hierarchy, bureaucracy, and punishments to create productivity. But we've come a long way since the 1800s, and over time, management has evolved. The efforts of the labor movement and key legal decisions certainly have done a lot to humanize the workplace, making it safer for people both physically and emotionally. And our economies have changed. The age of information and technology has radically transformed what work is and how it's accomplished. And globalization has redefined where we access our customers, suppliers, and even employees. Many organizations also discovered that how they treated their employees had an impact. Companies who treated their employees well saw higher productivity, reduced turnover, and even less sick time, which translated to huge cost savings. In addition, they discovered that happy employees treat customers better and are more creative, leading to product innovations. This has been driven home by the modern generations of workers, especially Generation X and Millennials, who have come to expect more from their jobs than just a paycheck. They vote with their feet, making the costs of recruitment and retention of good workers a high priority, even during economic slumps. Now, I don't want to imply that autocratic management is a thing of the past. You can still find it being used, especially by older managers and leaders. But you'll find that organizations that are thriving are doing so because they've embraced the latest revolution in management, which is to focus on motivating and engaging employees and customers alike. There are several key areas of management that have shifted over the years. One area is how decisions get made and implemented. Organizations are moving away from hierarchy based on authority and power, and instead tapping into the wisdom and expertise of people at all levels of the organization. This yields better decisions and increases engagement. Another area is how activities are coordinated across the organization. Instead of using bureaucracy and rigid roles, organizations are moving to more agile and nimble models that allow them to make changes quickly. In today's fast-paced world, managers are giving employees more autonomy and independence. The third area is how employee performance is measured. Rather than focusing on narrow markers of achievement, organizations are focusing more on competencies that support a wide range of successful outcomes. In addition, managers are stepping away from the reward and punishment model of motivation and tapping into how people are intrinsically motivated. This yields increased productivity and engagement. What does this all mean for you? Well, it means that your success can be enhanced by learning and implementing modern management strategies. Knowing how to better manage performance, people, and the business will pay off for you in numerous ways. As you become known as a great manager, you'll also reap direct benefits in your career as you're tapped for future opportunities in leadership. Throughout your day, you're probably going back and forth between managing and leading. In today's modern organizations, leadership and management are closely intertwined because almost all people who manage others in projects or functions also have to provide leadership to their people in the organization. Let's explore the important distinctions between them. The primary goal of leadership is to produce change and growth. The work of a leader is to envision a better tomorrow and design the change that will get the organization from here to there. The primary goal of management is to produce order and consistency. The work of a manager is to create a stable work environment that's clear and consistent so that employees can be as productive as possible. Needless to say, there's some natural tensions between management and leadership. Think about your day-to-day work over the past 2 weeks and identify when you're managing and when you're leading. Here are some key things to look for. 1. The first distinction is about approach. Managing is tactical and hands-on, while leading is strategic and visionary. This is because the time frame is different. Number 2, managing occurs in the here and now. You're looking at the short-term and mid-range goals that ensure success of the organization today. Contrast that with leading, where the focus is on the future and setting strategy and change to create the organization of tomorrow. 3. Another difference is that the focus shifts. For management, the focus is narrow and internal, whereas the leader's view is broad and external, including other functions, industry, market, and national and global affairs. Number 4, managing relies on current resources and structures, while leading designs new ones for the future. Number 5, for managing, the task goals are directing the daily work of employees to achieve currently identified goals, whereas leading requires planning for the future, setting a long-term vision and strategy to bring about the change. Finally, number 6, the people skills differ as well. Both managing and leading rely on emotional intelligence, but managing is more tactical, like conducting one-on-one meetings, delegating tasks, and coaching employees to improved performance. Leading is about building the culture to maximize engagement, inspiring various stakeholders with a compelling vision, fostering collaboration, and cultivating the next generation of leaders. All of this is in service to achieving the future potential of the organization by maximizing the most important asset, its talented people. As a manager, you'll play a few different roles. As I go through the 5 primary roles, think about how you play them over the course of your work week. The first is producer. You must produce the desired results and achieve the organization's goals through projects and tasks. Second is administrator. You must administer systems, policies, and procedures so that the organization runs efficiently. Third is innovator. In order to enact change that serves the organization's future, you'll need to be creative and innovate new ideas or solutions. Fourth is mediator. Not only will you need to help your employees work through conflict, you'll also mediate any tensions between the employees' needs and the organization's. And fifth is culture builder. You must build a work environment and culture that values its members and supports the organization's goals. Each role requires different skill sets, and you may be better at some than others. You want to play to your strengths and develop the areas in which you still need to grow. Also, think about how you can utilize the strengths of your people to balance you. It also happens that these roles can actually be in conflict with each other. For example, administering a policy might actually limit innovation, or enacting change might threaten the current culture. Part of being a manager is knowing how to balance these roles, and also when to prioritize one over another. This can be confusing, because there's actually 2 primary perspectives to consider. One is the employee's perspective, which focuses on the experience of the people under the manager. This is the one we're all most familiar with, because we've all been under a manager at some point in our careers. The other is the organization's perspective, which focuses on the effective completion of work that drives the organization's success. Every manager must find a way to live at the intersection of these 2 different and sometimes competing perspectives. Let's take a deeper look. I'm going to start with the organization's perspective because it really does come first. Everyone is employed to help the organization accomplish its goals. It's also true that the organization's perspective is what has driven management styles since the 1800s. The organization's perspective includes several key questions like, are the assigned projects and tasks completed? Does the work get completed on time and within the allotted budget? Is the level of work quality sufficient to accomplish the goals? Is the organization protected from lawsuits by compliance with state and federal laws and regulations? Does any innovation occur that enhances the organization's success? Does the manager hire and develop employees who make positive contributions to the organization over time? From this list, it becomes obvious that from the organization's perspective, key management skills include project management, time management, resource management, communication, decision-making, people skills, and performance management. Now let's switch to the employee's perspective. The people who report to a manager have several key questions like, are my tasks and responsibilities made clear? Am I given the training, guidance, and resources to complete the tasks? Are my skill sets effectively used, and am I given opportunities to grow? Am I treated fairly and with respect? Can I see that my contributions make a difference, and are they measured accurately? And is my worth accurately assessed and valued? Is there a clear career path for me to advance and grow? And from the employee's perspective, key management skills include communication, people skills, performance management, training and coaching, and fairness or ethics. There is overlap. The employee interaction is in service of the organization's goals, and the organization provides meaningful work and fair compensation to the employee. To be a successful manager, you'll need to find a way to artfully navigate the inherent tensions and opportunities that live between the needs of your employees and the goals of your organization. Management styles are the patterns of behavior people use when they hold management positions. These patterns of behavior include how they communicate, make decisions, supervise, and motivate. There's a range of management styles, and all are a blend of 3 key behaviors: task direction, decision-making, and relationship building. Task direction is when the manager tells the employee what to do, as well as when, where, and how. This may involve teaching and training, as well as directives and instructions. Decision-making is the extent to which the manager involves employees in the decision-making process. This exists on a continuum. At one end, employees have no involvement at all, and at the other end, the manager delegates decision-making completely to the employees. Relationship building is how the manager forms a relationship with each employee, as well as creates the work environment or culture for the team as a whole. It includes coaching, motivating and engaging employees, open communication, and respect. Let me walk through the most common management styles. I've coined the first style, the director. This manager wants to be in charge, so controls all aspects of decision-making. They provide a lot of task direction and are often seen as micromanagers. Directors don't engage much in relationship building, although they can be cordial. A hallmark phrase is, "do what I say." This autocratic style is appropriate when employees have very low levels of skill or initiative, or when the organization is in a crisis and needs immediate change. However, the director ultimately does harm to the organization because employees are not motivated and don't get opportunities to develop. The second style is the consultant. This manager still maintains control of decision-making, but knows that relationship building is important, so consults with employees to gain their input. Employees can feel more engaged with this style if the consulting is genuine. Consultants still provide task direction, but allow low levels of autonomy. The phrase for this style is, "I value your input." This style works well with employees who are growing in their skills or confidence, but not yet to the level where they can handle complex tasks on their own. Third, you have the consensus builder, who manages democratically. This manager genuinely seeks input and feedback from all sides. They focus on what's best for the group as a whole, so often make decisions based on majority preference or consensus. The phrase here is, "what do you think?" The downside of this style is that they may take too much time seeking input or ignoring the best decision in favor of the choice that has the most support. Fourth, you have the coach. This manager focuses on creating a highly productive and motivated staff. They provide both training as well as encouragement to grow. They often create a fun and positive work environment with lots of team building and social activities. The hallmark phrase is, "how can I support you?" This style is great for mid to high performers, but coaches can stumble if they have poor performers or difficult employees who don't respond to their encouragement. The fifth style is the visionary. This manager has an exciting vision, and they're good at inspiring or persuading others to get on board. Often, they're great at strategic thinking, but not so good with tactical skills. This manager is exemplified by the phrase, "follow me." To thrive under this style, employees need to be independent because they have to figure out the day-to-day work for themselves. The delegator is the sixth style. This manager uses a very hands-off or laissez-faire approach to management. They turn over almost complete control to their team, stepping in only when necessary. This style only works well with high-performing employees. The phrase here is, "you've got this." Delegators have to remember that while they may be able to hand over task performance and decision-making, they must continue to build relationships. The last style is called the narcissist, and it's actually the most harmful style, with very few redeeming qualities. The narcissist maintains control by providing a lot of task direction and no decision-making. They engage in relationship building, but only to garner favors or support, abruptly dropping people when it no longer suits their needs. This person is very self-centered, but they can still be likable, often even charming. But they rule with an iron fist, using punishments from firing to petty retaliations to keep people in line. People under them are in fear, so they cannot speak up or seek help. Often, once this person leaves or is let go, a whole series of shocking information comes to the surface. To know if you have this most toxic kind of boss, look for high turnover or a boss that takes all the credit for their team's successes and blames their team for any failures. As you review these styles, think about which styles you've experienced as an employee. What impact did the styles have on your productivity, motivation, and loyalty to the organization? Also, consider which style is most like you. We all tend to have a favorite or a natural style that we use the most. So which style should you choose? Well, it all depends on your situation. With the exception of the narcissist, all of the styles can be useful in certain contexts. While no one individual style is good or bad, a management style can be a good or poor fit for the situation, which determines its effectiveness. Let's start with your natural style of management. Which of the styles is most like you? If you're not sure, ask friends and colleagues for their feedback. It's important to know which style you default to, because that's what you're likely to do under stress. Ultimately, your natural style may be the fit for some of your employees, and they will thrive under you. But if you want your entire team to thrive, you must be willing to become versed in all of the styles. It's the manager's responsibility to be the chameleon and change your style to suit the situation. By picking the best style for the situation, you'll maximize the productivity and engagement of your people. To determine which style to use, first assess the skills and attitudes of each of your employees. Consider their job description and identify the skills or competencies they need to be successful. Rate their current competence in those skills. Also look at their attitudes. Are they enthusiastic and motivated, cautious or nervous, or even disengaged and bored? Look at how they get along as a group. Are they cohesive and friendly, or is there a lot of tension or conflict? Now, you apply combinations of task direction, relationship building, and decision making to bring out their best. With employees who are new or unskilled, use high amounts of task direction and relationship building. This will help them learn what they need to do the job, as well as start building a positive connection between you. You'd want to use the director and consultant styles. Over time, as you see evidence that your employees are becoming more skilled and confident, you'll throttle back on task direction as needed and maintain relationship building. Also now add some decision making to push their growth and development. Now, you don't just hand over a big decision to them, but first start involving them in discussions about decision-making. Begin by seeking their input and sharing what you're doing and why. As they get the hang of it, then you can let them make some low-risk decisions. This is when you might want to use the consensus builder and coach styles. Continue to build relationships as you push their skill development with more and more opportunities for decision-making. Once your employees are highly skilled, you can delegate a lot of things to them. At this point, you're providing very little task direction, and even then it's rare. You're also giving them a lot of autonomy with decision-making, increasing the complexity of projects to keep them challenged and engaged. You can also dial down the relationship building, as you should have a strong foundation of trust and respect to stand on. However, be careful that you don't stop relationship building altogether. Even your top performers still need encouragement and acknowledgement. You'll find that the visionary and delegator styles work well for you here. Especially because as your team grows, you can manage them less and less, allowing you to turn your focus toward leadership and strategy. If you want a great book to guide you through the many challenges of management, I highly encourage you to read the book Leading at a Higher Level by Ken Blanchard. It's one of my all-time favorite books and a must-read for managers. Let me leave you with one more tip. Think of yourself as a habit changer. Seriously, current developments in neuroscience have revealed new and exciting information about how humans form habits. Habits shape everything we do, from our professional to our personal lives. Every day we engage in habit loops that have been well built over time and in many cases are quite grooved, both behaviorally and neurologically. Think about your own day. Habit is behind your commute to the office, how you behave in meetings, and even how you answer your phone. When we do behaviors over and over again, they become grooved and even develop thicker neurological pathways. In fact, research has shown that it takes about 40 repetitions of a behavior before it becomes grooved as a habit, and 66 shows measurable thickening of the pathways. What does this have to do with management? Well, first, as a manager, you have your own habits. Your default management style is one of them. It's well grooved. If you want to help yourself become better at the other styles, you have to practice them so they become habits too. In addition, managing people is largely about helping them form new habits or better ones. As you give them task direction or opportunities to make decisions, you're actually helping them develop new habits for working. Effective managers are patient and allow people time to learn and grow, knowing that after about 40 repetitions of any new behavior, habits get formed. So play with the 6 styles, using them based on what's the best fit for the situation. You may even use one style with one employee and a different style with another. Ultimately, your goal is to bring out the best in your people, and the right choice of management style is how you accomplish this. I believe that managing performance is at the heart of the manager's role. So I've put this section first because it will frame the rest of the material in this course. We're first going to explore what performance management is, and then I'll share some strategies you can use with your employees. Performance management is the entire series of practices, policies, and procedures that guide and support an employee's successful completion of their work. Ultimately, you're managing people and completing work that's necessary to your organization's success. All of this is done within the structure of the performance management process you use. And I'm not just talking about the software or system you use for completing annual reviews, although that's certainly part of it. This means that effective performance management includes and aligns many different aspects, such as the organization's goals and objectives, the organizational values and culture, job descriptions, competencies, assessment of employee performance, process for developing and motivating employees, compensation like salary and bonuses, and making employment decisions such as promotion and termination. Ideally, all these elements should align to create a cohesive system that's clear to all involved. And it should provide you, the manager, with clear strategies and practices to use during your interactions with your employees, from one-on-one discussions to project meetings to formal annual reviews. No matter your organization's size or industry, today's work environment is dramatically different than it was a few years ago. More work straddles multiple departments or customer bases. This in turn requires more collaboration, which then necessitates better communication. And more employees are now working remotely or with colleagues in other states or countries. Because of the changing nature of today's business environment, many organizations are realizing the need to revise their performance management systems, so you'll likely experience a range of models and systems over the course of your career. As a manager, you'll need to utilize the current system in place at your organization, but I think it's always a good idea for you to stay informed about best practices in performance management, because it can guide how you implement your organization's system or even how you advocate for needed change. Some of my favorite sources of information are the Human Resources Leadership Council, the Society for Human Resource Management, Harvard Business Review, and Burson by Deloitte. To be an effective manager, I recommend that you use the following strategies. First, become informed about your organization's process for performance management, and do so as early as you can. If they offer training, attend it right away. Many managers wait until they must complete an annual review, but that's actually 12 months too late. Performance management is something you should be doing every week with all of your employees. If they don't offer a training or if you still have questions, make an appointment with the appropriate person in HR. Ultimately, the performance process offers legal protection to both employees and the organization. The manager is the person responsible for implementing it appropriately and accurately. No pressure or anything. Second, create your own method for organizing key information. Consider how you'll track and measure each employee's progress throughout the year. Perhaps design your own form for one-on-one meetings or agendas for team meetings that helps you align the day-to-day work with performance management. Be sure to explore the features that an online system might offer you or other online tools that can help you. Third, be transparent with your employees. Share with them all you can about the process. Discuss how and when their performance will be assessed, how you'll support them in being successful, and how it relates to compensation and career opportunities. No employee should ever be surprised during their annual review. I recommend doing this in a group setting so that everyone hears the same thing at the same time. It not only saves you from repeating yourself, it also helps the team know that they're all held to the same process and standards. In the rest of this chapter, we're going to look at more parts of the performance management process and how you can use various tools to maximize your success as a manager. True or false, your role as someone's manager starts their first day of work. Actually, it's false. It begins the minute you post a position for hire. The part that says reports to identifies you as their supervisor and the person who's responsible for the performance management process. The job description outlines important aspects of their duties and responsibilities, and usually includes other key elements of the performance process, such as expected qualifications and compensation. And it's likely that you'll ultimately participate in interviewing the top candidates, assessing their skills and abilities, which will lead to a hiring decision and a formal offer of employment. Hiring and onboarding your employees is the beginning of your professional relationship, and you want to start off strong. Let's look at how. First, make sure you use best practices in hiring. Ultimately, you want to hire the right person for the job, someone who has the skills to be successful and will grow from the opportunity. The hiring process should be designed to help you assess key aspects of each candidate's competence, as well as how they'll contribute to the daily work environment of your team. Second, follow established procedures and practices. If you have an HR department, they'll likely guide and oversee some aspects of the hiring process, so be sure you attend any training available to you. Employee laws have gotten very complex over the years, and your colleagues in HR work hard to help you and other managers be successful. But you have to listen to their guidance. One inappropriate question during an interview like, "Are you married?" not only opens your organization up to a lawsuit, but it can often cost you a good candidate who might question your competency since you didn't know better. Third, put in the time and energy to lead a great hiring process. Hiring is a two-way street. You're evaluating the candidate, but the candidate is also seeing if they want to work for your organization, and specifically, you. Take this process seriously. I know that you might be busy, but don't make the mistakes that many managers do, which is to treat interviews as an interruption in their day. Schedule time to review applications, create thoughtful questions, and assess the candidates. Make sure you come to the meeting with an attitude of respect and openness. After all, first impressions matter on both sides of the desk. The hiring process takes time and energy, but consider it an investment in building a great team. The more care and thought you put into the hiring process, the more it will pay off down the road in productive employees and collaborative teams. Now let's turn our focus to onboarding. This is the new employee's formal introduction and orientation to your organization and your team. It's the process of getting new hires adjusted to the performance and social aspects of their jobs quickly and smoothly. The benefits of onboarding include increased job satisfaction, increased performance, and decreased turnover. Onboarding can occur through a range of tools, including online and paper documents, such as websites and handbooks, videos, and in-person meetings. Onboarding can range from a couple of hours to a couple of weeks or even months, depending on the needs of your organization and the complexity of various roles. Again, there are best practices in onboarding. First, employees should be onboarded to 3 connected but distinct things: the organization, the department, and their job. You'll want to make sure you address all 3. Another best practice is to focus onboarding on what is known as the 4 C's. Compliance, which are the laws and policies that must be adhered to. Clarification about job duties and expectations. Culture, which includes the stated and assumed values, goals, and norms of the organization. And connection, which are the interpersonal relationships and networks vital to their success. By using these best practices in onboarding, you'll not only be setting up your employees for success, but also begin building a positive work relationship between you. A vital part of any performance management process is setting goals and tracking progress towards accomplishing them. Let's first talk about choices you have with a performance management system. One best practice in performance management is to have the system organized around cascading goals. At the top, they begin with the organization's goals or objectives and then waterfall down to the department goals, followed by team and employee goals. This allows each person's individual task performance and each team's performance to be measured against how it contributes to the organization's success. Another option is to have two tracks, one that focuses on task performance and one that focuses on career or professional development. Task performance is about the actions, behaviors, and competencies needed to complete the task goals set for the year. These are directly tied to the employee's current position and job description. And they're not just to-do lists either. They can include key people skills like communication and collaboration, as well as other competencies needed to do their job effectively. These discussions tie directly to the annual review process. Career and professional development is about helping the employee move up to other positions or opportunities in the future. This may include preparing the person for management roles or helping them develop new skills that position them for parallel careers. One of the key ways to motivate and engage your people is to support their professional development. Many organizations build these discussions into the performance process, although they're separated from the annual review process and compensation decisions. No matter how your performance management process is organized, you'll use goal setting as a way to focus and direct actions and behaviors. Let's look at some strategies you can use as a manager to help your employees with goal setting. First, I recommend using the SMART goal technique, where each goal has the following 5 qualities. It's specific, meaning that you get clear about the details of who, what, where, and how. It's measurable, meaning that there's a clear way to see progress. It's action-oriented, meaning that the employee has the ability to do something, as opposed to it being in someone else's hands. It's realistic, meaning that it can be accomplished with the time and resources available. And finally, it's timely, meaning that it has a clearly stated deadline, possibly with smaller milestones leading up to that deadline. Using the SMART goal technique will help you and your employee clearly identify measurable behaviors that will make it so much easier for you to track progress. You can also break the larger goal into smaller steps, applying the SMART technique to each one. This allows you to take a larger goal and see how it should move along over weeks or even months. Second, institute quarterly progress checks. One of the mistakes that managers and employees often make is to set goals at the beginning of the year and only assess them when it's time to do the annual review. This not only makes the review process difficult as you wade back through 12 months, it also eliminates the opportunity to make course corrections. If you use the SMART goal technique, you should be able to map goals across time. Shorter milestones should build to the completion of the goal. When you check in every quarter, it gives you and the employee the opportunity to see which goals are on track and which may be falling behind. Then you can strategize solutions for getting back on track before it's too late to fix it. Third, when progress stalls, identify and remove the obstacles. It's very likely that progress will stall for each of your employees in some way. When that happens, it's important to take a closer look at what's happening, because it won't do much good if you set a new deadline without addressing the source of the roadblock. For example, if your employee has too much on their plate or competing priorities, just putting this goal back on their plate will likely lead to another missed milestone down the road. Or perhaps the employee needs something to accomplish the goal, such as information, authority, or training. You need to provide it if you want to see progress. Or it could even be emotional in nature. When people procrastinate, it's often because there's something about the task that's not compelling or motivating. You may need to help your employee explore what's underneath their resistance so you can address it. As a manager, you'll often find that supporting your employees in achieving their goals also requires some coaching skills on your part. I certainly have. We're going to cover that in the next video. In the meantime, consider how you can utilize these strategies to help your employees set and achieve both their performance and professional development goals. As a manager, I have found that coaching is one of my primary tools for helping employees be at their best. However, there's a lot of confusion about what employee coaching is and how it works. That's because there's actually different styles of coaching and different types of coaching conversations that you can use in a professional setting. So let's clear that up. Coaching has evolved from 2 important but very different fields, and this essentially creates 2 primary styles of coaching. The first is skill coaching, where the coach's expertise is in the skill and they teach that skill to another person. This mode evolved from athletic coaching, where the coach is someone who has extensive experience with a skill, say baseball or swimming, and then coaches another on how to improve that skill. It's a model based on teaching, observation, and offering advice, tips, and strategies. It's intentionally directive, and it's what we naturally default to as managers. The benefits of skill coaching is that it's often faster and easier to direct people, and it offers the manager a lot of control about how work is completed. The second style is clarity coaching. The coach's expertise is in the clarity process, and they facilitate the other person in accessing their own answers. This mode evolved from the field of life coaching, where the coach is trained in formal coaching skills. The coach facilitates the other person in becoming clear about an issue and uses powerful questions to help them tap into their own knowledge and expertise. The coach then supports the person's progress with action plans and accountability. This style is intentionally non-directive, and the coach must be well-versed in the techniques of clarity coaching. There are 3 primary benefits of clarity coaching. 1, it's a process that's proven to motivate and engage employees. 2, behavior change is more likely to stick when they arrive at it on their own because they become more invested and accountable. And 3, over time, you build employee confidence because they're more likely to initiate solving their own problems in the future. Obviously, these 2 styles can be at odds with each other, yet both are very powerful tools for employee coaching. It becomes a question of which to use when. Generally, you want to use skill coaching with new employees who need a lot of guidance or employees who are new to a complex task. But as your employees grow and develop, you'll want to shift more and more often to clarity coaching. Now let's look at the 4 types of coaching conversations people can have in a professional setting. The first is problem solving. This is when the employees have hit a roadblock with a project or situation, and they need help thinking through the issue and possible solutions. Second is performance. This is used when employees need to improve or develop a professional skill to do their current job well. Third is development. This is used with a high-performing employee and is about preparing them for the next level of skill or responsibility. Finally, there's career planning. This is used to help an employee identify their long-term career goals and plan for achieving them. As a manager, you should be having all 4 types of conversations with your employees. In all of these conversations, skill coaching might take less time, but if you want to build the competence and motivation of your employees, you need to be using clarity coaching more and more of the time. Like any skill, clarity coaching will get easier if you keep practicing it. I'm a big fan of creating a coaching culture in an organization. Many studies have been done on the benefits, with the return on investment paying off in increased productivity, employee engagement, and the effectiveness of leaders. You'll find that employees are most happy with and loyal to managers who use clarity coaching because they feel valued, heard, and empowered. So develop your skills today and start reaping the many benefits that coaching your employees will bring. Giving performance feedback can be an entire course on its own. Ideally, your organization's performance management process clearly outlines how performance issues are handled. If so, then you would implement that process as instructed. Obviously, there are legal implications for performance discussions, so I strongly encourage you to consult with your HR and legal professionals. They're there to help you navigate these situations successfully, so take advantage of their guidance. Performance problems very rarely just develop overnight. They usually build from small situations. Part of your role as a manager is to address issues early so that they don't become a problem. Let's look at how you do that. First, start off with clarity. At the moment someone becomes your direct report, you should have a discussion about these key items. The main elements of their performance. This would be an overview of their job duties. How you'll measure that performance. Talk about what data or markers you'll use to measure their success and at what intervals. How and when you'll communicate both praise and problems. This might include formal reviews and informal meetings. And the performance improvement process. Discuss how and when an employee will learn that they need to improve and how long they'll have to do so. If employees are at will, talk about what that means too. Honestly, if every manager had this conversation with their employees, it would go a long way to solving things. Second, honor the plan. You have to meet the standard you create. As the manager, it's your responsibility to drive the process for performance feedback and reviews. So provide feedback when you said you would, using the measures of progress that you already outlined. Third, address concerns immediately. If you're even wondering a little about an employee's performance, it's time to speak up. It's far better to address things early because that's when you have the greatest chance to make things change. Since you're addressing things early, you'll use language like, "Lately I've noticed that," or "I'm wondering if we've had a miscommunication because." You don't want to make any assumptions about your employee's behavior, but you do want to bring up your questions and concerns. Ask them for their perspective too. You may discover something important, like the need for some training, or even a lack of clarity on your part. Your goal here is to help them improve. They may need some coaching or more direct guidance from you to get going in the right direction. Be sure you wrap up with a clear understanding of what needs to change and by when. You really want to ground the conversation with a clear action plan. You cannot be too specific about what actions or behaviors you need to see occur and when you expect them to be done. And of course, it's always a good idea to keep a file with your notes. Fourth, stay on top of issues until they're resolved. The employee will either respond to your feedback or they won't. The vast majority will get things back on track. If they course correct quickly, be sure you acknowledge their efforts. That's a really important part of the process. But for a handful, they'll still be going astray. At this point, have another meeting to discuss your new observations and your concern that they did not make the agreed-upon changes. The tone of this meeting should be more serious. Arrive at a new agreement with clear goals and timelines. If they shift, praise their efforts. Sometimes, issues continue to arise. When that happens, clearly mark that they're moving into problem territory. The biggest mistake that managers make is assuming that their employee knows when they're in trouble. It doesn't matter how many times you've talked with them. They won't know until you say the words. Something like, "This is becoming a problem. You need to address this or you'll experience the following consequences," and then spell those out. Tell them if it's going to affect their performance review, raise, or ability to stay with the company. It's better to shock them into action with firmness than wait too long when they can't recover. If you're clear and strong, you'll know for sure that you gave them every opportunity to fix it. In the case that they don't, you'll be more at peace if you have to let them go. Also, when things move into problem territory, get support. Work with someone in HR to ensure that you're taking all of the appropriate actions. There are often very specific stipulations you need to meet in terms of communication and documentation. Ultimately, the goal of giving performance feedback is to help people be their best. It's part of maximizing their potential and guiding their professional development. Your job is to give them clear information and the opportunity to do their best. The rest is up to them. Letting people go is one of the hardest parts of being a manager. In all my years of professional work, I don't know anyone who's ever enjoyed the process. But making tough decisions is part of your role as a manager, so at some point in your career, you'll have to do this. Let's make sure you're prepared. The first thing to know is that ending someone's employment can take a few different forms. Each has its own complexities and is governed by different rules, policies, and even laws. There are also different employee statuses that affect the process too. An employee's exempt status or membership in a represented labor group all play a role, as do local, state, and federal laws. Sound confusing? It is. This is why your first strategy is always to involve HR and legal professionals early. I cannot emphasize this enough. There are often very specific requirements around documentation and communication, with your word choices and actions having a greater impact than you may realize. So always seek guidance and support as early in the process as possible. Let's talk about different types of ending employment, which you'll also hear referred to as terminations or work separations. The first general type of termination is voluntary. The person leaves of their own will, so this really doesn't involve you letting them go. But as a manager, there's still policies and procedures that govern voluntary termination, such as their resignation or retirement from the position. In addition to ending their employment status, there are other ramifications for benefits, the transfer of files and records, etc. There's also something called termination by mutual agreement. This includes things like the ending of a contract employee's agreement, forced resignation, and job abandonment. The second general type of termination is involuntary. The person is not choosing to leave, but the termination is forced upon them. Again, there can be many different reasons. Some common examples include layoffs, where positions are eliminated in order to reduce the size of the workforce. This is also known as termination without prejudice because it was not a function of the employee's performance. In this case, employees are eligible to be rehired in the future. Being fired is where the employee is being let go for a specific reason, usually related to performance or some egregious violation of ethical or legal policies. This is also known as termination with prejudice or termination for cause, and the person is not eligible for rehire. And then you have situations where the employee was wrongfully terminated because the manager and/or the organization violated laws or policies governing work separation. These can often lead to expensive lawsuits. Finally, the third type of termination is due to death. Obviously, this doesn't neatly fit into either of the previous categories, so legally it has its own and is governed by laws, policies, and procedures that involve the survivors and beneficiaries of the deceased employee. If you're feeling overwhelmed at this point, it's normal. I do too. Labor laws are complex and also ever-changing. As a manager, you're not expected to know and remember all the details, but you are expected to know that terminating employees has important and legal ramifications for both the interests of the employee and the organization. You're in the middle, and that's why you don't want to take any action without the guidance and support of HR and legal professionals. Luckily, they're well-versed in all the current information and can not only guide you, but may actually lead and conduct aspects of the process as well. Ultimately, when an employee is terminated, you will be involved in some way. Often there's a face-to-face meeting that occurs that you will at least participate in, if not lead. While it may be challenging, you can prepare yourself by taking these simple steps. First, be prepared. Review the process and be clear about what you need to do and say. Take notes and ask questions. It's your responsibility to make sure that you know what you're doing. Second, practice. Role-playing the conversation can be really helpful in making you more confident for the meeting. Oftentimes, the folks in HR can help you do this. Be sure to role-play the situations that worry you too, like the other person crying or becoming hostile. You want to know that you can handle anything. Third, connect with your compassion. Sometimes all the formality of this process can make us feel like we can't be compassionate. You probably really care about your employee, even if they have been difficult. It's normal that you may feel sadness or regret that things didn't work out better. And you may even worry about this person's future and wish the best for them. It's true that you may or may not be able to say certain things, but you can still arrive at the meeting with compassion in your heart and the commitment to treat them with care and respect. Remember, people thrive in different environments. We all know folks who've been fired to go on and find the right fit somewhere else. Ultimately, letting people go is never easy, but it is your role as a manager to make the process go as smoothly as possible for the employee and the organization. In today's collaborative work environments, more and more work is being done in teams. As a result, an important aspect of performance management includes team performance. Ultimately, you need to find a way to assess and measure how collaborative work reflects on each individual employee's performance as well as the group as a whole. A team is different from a group of individuals who may form a department or a cross-functional group. Specifically, to be a team, the group must have the following 4 qualities. Number 1, a common purpose. This would be the clear goal they're to achieve. Number 2, their efforts must be interdependent. Otherwise, it's just coordinated efforts of individual contributors, and that's not a team. Number 3, they must share accountability. Everyone is held responsible for the group's success or failure. And number 4, the members must believe that the outcome will be better working together than alone. Managing a high-performing team takes effort, so plan to spend some time and energy on implementing these strategies. This will also help you address the most common reasons teams fail, which are unclear purpose or goals, lack of clear plan or commitment to the plan, inability to deal with conflict, lack of shared accountability for results, insufficient resources, and lack of trust. So you've been promoted to manager. Congratulations! This is a great opportunity. And if you're like most people, you're simultaneously excited and nervous. I know I was. We've all experienced bad bosses, and I'm sure you want to do a good job and be someone your employees trust and respect. In fact, that should be your goal, to build a relationship with them based on trust and respect. In this chapter, we'll cover ways you can do that. But first, let's talk about how you transition from being a peer to a manager. If you're coming in from the outside and haven't worked alongside your reports, it can be easier because you don't have a previous relationship with them. You come into a role of authority. While they don't know you, they also don't have any preconceived notions about you. However, you'll have more work to do to help them get to know you and trust you. If you've been promoted to supervise your colleagues, they do know you, which means they have some beliefs about who you are and how you'll manage. These may or may not be accurate, so you may need to overcome not only their assumptions, but your own. Whether you're promoted from within or hired from the outside, the following strategy should guide your actions the first few weeks and months. First, have patience with their nervousness. You probably remember having a new boss yourself. Because we've all lived with poor managers, people are somewhat anxious to see what kind of manager you're going to be. This means that they'll simultaneously be putting on their best behavior for you and also guarded about what they share with you. They'll also be trying to bend your ear about their priorities and concerns. That's good. You want to learn all you can, so listen. Just don't promise anything early on until you've really had time to assess everything. This is a great time to focus on getting to know your people, your second strategy. One of the best things any new manager can do is to make a point of meeting with each of your people to learn more about them. Here are some key questions to ask. Tell me about your role. I'd like to hear your perspective on what your priorities are and the challenges that you face. How can I support you in being successful? How do you like to be supervised? And what motivates and engages you at work? End by thanking them for the information. At this point, don't make any promises about what you will or won't do. It's too early to commit to anything. I also think it's a good idea to meet with your colleagues in other departments and also those above you. Ask them the first 2 questions. You'll learn a lot. This is all part of the third strategy, which is to take time and gather information. This is certainly important if you're new to the organization, but it's even more so if you're already working there. And here's why. As you move up, you gain a whole new perspective about things. You'll be privy to all kinds of information that you didn't have before. You'll learn more about the people above you, the organization's goals and challenges, as well as confidential information about the budget and personnel files. Trust me, when you move up, it's a whole new world. So you want to take time to learn all that you can before you make any big decisions or implement new ideas. While you may be brimming with them, it's in your best interest to slow down and thoroughly explore the real lay of the land. Fourth, be transparent with your values and philosophy. While you may be waiting to design and implement changes, you can use this time to share your values and management philosophy. This is how you start building trust and establishing your integrity. Your employers are nervous, and they want and need to know who you're going to be. Fifth, take time to craft your overall strategy. Once you've gathered information, you want to think about how you can address and resolve some of the challenges while also maximizing strengths and opportunities. And this all needs to work within the structures and resources you have. By crafting your overall plan, it will help you map out how you'll make changes over time. In addition, it will be the North Star that will guide your decision-making in all kinds of situations. Finally, pace yourself. I know you may be chomping at the bit to get started, but if you rush too quickly, you may accidentally damage the relationships you're trying to build. Your effectiveness as a manager is completely dependent on your ability to build positive working relationships with people all over your organization. So focus on that first, and the rest will follow. Establishing trust is an ongoing practice, something you do every day in your words and actions. As a manager, your success is dependent on creating an environment where you're seen as trustworthy, not only by your direct reports, but also your supervisors and your peers. So how do you build trust? Let's look at the key practices. First, have integrity with your words and actions. This means that you do what you said you would. You follow through, meet deadlines, and keep your promises. This is not occasionally, but all the time. In the rare instances where you cannot deliver, you take responsibility, explain why, and even apologize when appropriate. Second, share your values. People have to know what you stand for in order to assess if you have integrity or not. Study after study shows that people assess trustworthiness based on how well you live in alignment with your values. They can do this faster if they know what your values are. Interestingly, they don't have to like or approve your values for you to establish trust. Third, make ethical choices. Ethics are another important aspect of integrity. How they differ is that each culture or society has its own laws and norms that determine what's considered ethical within that context. Acting ethically is about being in alignment with the agreed-upon standards of that community. Certainly the workplace has some agreed-upon standards, like not discriminating against people. Sometimes an industry has a code of ethics, like medicine's Hippocratic Oath of do no harm. And many organizations have their own code of ethics that they outline in shared values or specific policies and practices. Fourth, sincerely listen to others. When you listen to others without judgment, it makes it easier for them to open up in the future. You want to be a place where people can bring their honest concerns, needs, priorities, and hopes, and know that you'll listen. This doesn't mean that you have to give them everything they want. In fact, you often won't be able to. But if you listen and respond with respect, you'll build trust with every conversation. Fifth, be accountable for your actions. Part of managing is taking risks and making decisions. Sometimes you'll be successful, and sometimes you won't. If you blame others or make excuses, you'll damage trust. And if you take credit for other people's work, you harm trust too. So be accountable for your actions, both good and bad. Admit your mistakes and be proud of your wins. Sixth, be honest in your communication. Your word has to mean something. This is not only following through on promises, but also that you can be honest about anything. Sometimes honesty is hard. It means that you offer realistic assessments, frank critiques, and clear opinions. That can be challenging if you know the other person won't like what you have to say or may be hurt by it. But trust is also built on people knowing that you'll be honest. Find ways to communicate honestly and clearly, but also with kindness and empathy. It will make it easier for them to hear what you have to say. Seventh, respond to feedback. You'll be the recipient of feedback, and how you handle it is part of building trust. If you get defensive or shoot the messenger, you're going to harm trust. As a manager, you have power in the relationship, so you need to intentionally seek feedback and then make changes. Remember, people leave a boss, not a company. Before they leave, they'll try once or twice to give you feedback. If you don't change, they'll start disengaging as they get ready to leave. So take feedback very seriously. In fact, intentionally seek it out. Don't just wait for people to bring you feedback or complaints. Actively seek out their opinions, both good and bad, about how things are going. And reward honesty. When someone has the courage to tell you challenging news, sincerely thank them. They've actually shown you a great sign of respect. This is all part of making it safe to take risks, the last and most important practice. One of the worst things that can happen in work setting is if there's a culture of fear. When people are afraid, they're obviously not in trust. And even worse, you've shut down the pathway to creativity and innovation, something that all organizations need to be successful. As a manager, you need to create a culture where it's safe to take risks. Be open to hearing feedback or ideas that are different from yours. Also, don't allow your employees to treat each other poorly. And don't tolerate behavior that undermines safety for anyone in the organization. Be clear about how performance issues are handled. People feel safer if they trust that the process will be fair. If you consistently focus on building trust, you'll be able to do so. But the work doesn't stop there. While it takes time to build trust, it can be destroyed overnight. One violation on your part can undo months of hard work. So make establishing trust one of your top and ongoing priorities. It should be built on a set of these practices that you use every day. As a manager, you have a responsibility to build others up. Obviously, there's a business case for doing so. Helping others achieve their potential yields all kinds of measurable outcomes that affect the bottom line, like productivity, innovation, and customer satisfaction. I think it's important to remember that building others up also reflects well on you. One sign that top executives look for is whose team is thriving and excelling. They know that this indicates a manager that has high potential for future opportunities. As a manager, you want to intentionally motivate and engage your team. Recent research has clearly demonstrated key factors that inspire people. Let's first look at motivation. Studies in psychology and human potential show us that all humans are motivated by 3 driving forces in ranking order. First, the need for physical survival and safety. This includes the most basic necessities from air, food, and water to our more modern versions of being able to buy a home, afford health care, and have job security. When this level is tended to, we can focus more energy on the second level, which is the need to belong. This includes our social needs of having friends and loved ones and being able to spend quality time with them. In addition, this level includes our sense of achievement and competence in professional settings. When this level is tended to, we can then focus on the highest level, which is the need to achieve our full potential. Humans are drawn to becoming the best they can be. This not only includes personal excellence, but also expressing and appreciating creativity, as well as making a difference in the lives of others. In fact, compelling research has shown that when the other levels are met, humans are most motivated by having autonomy, developing mastery, and contributing to a meaningful purpose. Now let's look at engagement. Engagement is the level of positive attachment employees feel toward their job and organization, which serves as a profound motivator for productivity and growth. Studies show that the top causes of employee disengagement are feeling invisible because efforts are not measured or recognized. The job or workplace is not as expected. There's little to no feedback or coaching, and there's no access to professional development. They're overworked and stressed out. And there's a lack of trust or confidence in the senior leaders. So engaging employees obviously involves tending to these issues. It's not just a one-shot deal. It's how they're treated on a daily basis. This includes hiring people into the right positions, making sure job descriptions match real work expectations, providing training and development, and having a performance management process that accurately measures contributions. But the true spirit of engaging employees lives in the relationships managers build with their people. Here are some specific strategies to use for building a culture of employee engagement through individual relationships. First, get to know your people individually. Focus on the whole person and not just their work life. Learn more about their strengths, skills, and their styles for work, communication, conflict, and leadership. Learn more about who they are as people through your observations, interactions, and discussions. Consider what you know about their values, experiences, needs, and priorities. Second, use your one-on-one meetings to not only discuss performance, but actively support their professional development plans. Make sure that their interests and ultimate career goals are a regular part of your check-ins. Regularly provide coaching and training to enhance their skills, and keep an eye out for relevant opportunities like being assigned to a project or committee. Third, use appreciative inquiry to bring out their best. Appreciative inquiry is based on the idea that instead of focusing on their flaws or weaknesses, you want to focus on people's strengths and successes. To use appreciative inquiry, you ask a person or a team about their successes, times when they've really excelled at something or had a peak performance. Then you explore what set that apart. The goal is to find ways to translate that success to other performances. Finally, celebrate successes, both large and small. Do this with individuals and with the group. People are most motivated when they're moving towards something and have a sense of their progress, rather than having their failings highlighted. When employees feel respected and empowered, they can face challenges with a collaborative spirit and positive attitude. As a manager, consider how you can use these ideas to motivate and engage your people. The benefits to your organization are numerous. To be successful as a manager, you must learn the art of delegating. And it really is an art, because when done right, it requires some thoughtful analysis and intentional choices on your part. Delegation is a very important interaction that lies at the intersection of three things: the delegator, you; the delegate, the person you're handing a task to; and the organization that the interaction is housed within. Delegation is the process of asking another person to do a task while still maintaining responsibility for that task. It can range from giving someone a simple everyday task to appointing someone as the leader of a complex project. Appointments can be short-term, from minutes to a couple of weeks, or long-term, from a few weeks to months. But delegation is not just about handing off tasks. It's actually a great opportunity to further motivate and engage your employees by creating opportunities for their professional development. As the manager, you're in the role of the delegator, and you're instrumental in making the process go smoothly. Most people think that there's only one phase. You ask the employee to do a task, and they do it. But actually, successful delegation is more complex than that, and requires you to be savvy with both project management as well as people skills. When I consult with organizations, I teach my 4-phase model of delegation. The 4 phases are the evaluation, handover, support, and debrief. The phases are linear, meaning that you need to complete one before you go on to the next. The first phase is called evaluation. In this phase, you assess aspects of the organization, your workload, and your employees. This will help you determine what can and should be delegated, and to whom various projects should be given. The goal here is to match up your employees' strengths and opportunities for growth with a project that will help them further develop. Unfortunately, evaluation is the phase that most managers skip because they feel pressed for time. This can set up a pattern where managers try to do too many things themselves, and then when the workload gets to be too much, dump tasks on others at the last minute. This not only affects the success of the tasks being done well, but can also harm the relationship between the manager and employees. So take the time to do this phase, because it will set you and your team up for success. The second phase is called the handover. In this phase, the focus is to communicate clear expectations about the goals of the tasks, resources that will be provided, and the timeline. You also determine how much autonomy you're going to give them. A crucial part of this phase is determining and communicating how much freedom you're assigning. Did you know that there's actually 8 levels of autonomy? These levels cover who gathers the information, who makes the decision, and who takes the action. By far and away, the biggest source of problems in delegation is lack of clarity about which level of autonomy is being given. The third phase is called support. In this phase, you deliver any resources or support promised in phase 2. This includes granting access to authority, providing resources, and coaching your employee as needed. Delivering what you promised builds trust and respect with your employees, and again, contributes to the successful completion of the task. During the support phase, you also monitor the progress of the employee and the ways you agreed upon during the handover. The final phase in the delegation process is called the debrief. This phase occurs once the task is completed, thus ending the delegation. You and the employee meet to discuss the outcome of the task, as well as the process of delegation. You discuss things like what issues arose, lessons learned, and ideas for improving for the future. As you delegate more proficiently, your team will become more effective and efficient in completing tasks. You also gain the benefit of moving some things off your plate, which frees you up to focus time and energy on the projects that require your knowledge and experience. Micromanagement is actually what happens when delegation goes badly, and it's usually due to one of 3 causes. The first cause is an incomplete evaluation. As I mentioned earlier, the evaluation phase is the phase that most people skip because they're often delegating under pressure. They're in a hurry to offload something during a stressful time, and that never ends well. The second cause is lack of clarity about the level of autonomy. When an employee feels micromanaged, it's because they thought they were getting a higher level of autonomy than they are. It's the manager's responsibility to make the level clear. When you communicate the level you're giving to the delegate, you eliminate any confusion or mistaken assumptions that either of you may have had. Over time, as employees are successful, you should be granting higher levels of autonomy. This demonstrates that you trust your employees, which will contribute to their motivation and engagement. The third cause of micromanagement is the manager violating the agreed-upon level of autonomy. When it's unnecessary, it will feel like micromanagement to the delegate. In other words, the delegate was capable of completing the task successfully, but the manager stepped in. This not only frustrates the delegate, but shortchanges their opportunity to learn and grow. Sometimes it's not even conscious. The manager truly believes that they're just helping out and doesn't see the bigger ramifications of what's happening. Most often, when managers violate the agreed-upon level of autonomy, it's related to the manager's discomfort with letting go. While the manager may have had good intentions to honor the level of autonomy, they're not able to control their personal reaction to the letting go process. There are a few common sources that I want to highlight for you. See if any of these are concerns that you struggle with. Number 1, thinking that it's easier or faster to do it yourself. This one is tricky because it usually is easier or faster to do it yourself. You may be tempted to take over the task and just get it done. But remember, a large part of being a good manager is about developing your people. You need to give them the opportunity to learn, which takes time. The second cause is worrying that your staff are already overburdened and cannot take on anything more. I've struggled with this myself, but it has helped to remember that employees are most satisfied and motivated when they get opportunities to grow. Talk with them and brainstorm together about how to shift things around or even eliminate unnecessary tasks to make room for new opportunities. The third reason people struggle with micromanagement is fear of losing control or importance. Delegation involves the loss of direct control, and this may cause some managers great discomfort. This is the great thing about delegation. It pushes everyone to grow a little, even you. Remember, you can build in progress checks and coaching discussions to create a safety net that allows you to keep an eye on things. This also allows your employees space to develop new skills. I also find it helpful to remember that there are many paths to an outcome. If you know your employee can produce the work, be more flexible with how they get there. So try these strategies to help you overcome the temptation of micromanagement. If you find that you continue to struggle with letting go, don't hesitate to seek the support of a career coach or personal counselor. Part of how you're assessed as a manager is how your team grows and develops, so it's an investment in your career as well. Remember that the growth of your team depends on your ability to let them try. How do you feel about conflict? It's interesting, but a lot of people think that conflict is a bad thing, something to be avoided or de-escalated as quickly as possible. But conflict is actually a natural byproduct of both group development and diversity. Much of conflict is healthy and contributes to the growth of the individual and the organization. As a manager, you'll find that dealing with conflict is a normal part of your responsibilities. One model that's very helpful to know is Tuckman's 5 stages of group development. Tuckman did research on groups, and his findings have stood the test of time. This model is still taught in today's business schools. The first stage is called forming. This is the time when the members are introduced to the group and they get acquainted. The second stage is called storming because it's when conflict arises. The group is sorting out their differences as they try to organize their goals and ideas. The third stage is called norming, and this is when group cohesion gets established. Members find effective ways to share ideas and suggestions. Performing is the fourth stage, and the group achieves interdependence. Members are self-directed and productive. Groups can hang out in this fourth stage for quite a while, but eventually they move into the last stage, adjourning. This is when the project or group is wrapped up. Members finish up the task, organize reports and documents, and they celebrate their successes. As a manager, you need to expect conflict and be comfortable handling it. The goal is to know the difference between healthy conflict and toxic conflict that can do harm. You can identify toxic conflict by the following. People openly use insulting or demeaning words and actions, like name-calling, shaming, and sneering. Or people sabotage or undermine the efforts of another, usually behind their back. Both of these methods are destructive. They not only kill trust, but they also undermine the efforts and goals of the group and organization. You should have a zero-tolerance policy for these kinds of conflict behaviors. However, toxic conflict is actually rare and only shows up when people cannot resolve their differences through more open and healthy means. To this end, you want to create an environment where healthy conflict can be embraced. Here's some great questions to ask. Can you identify what the source of the conflict is for you? What are your needs, concerns, and goals in this situation? Are there any hidden agendas, vested interests, or emotional attachments at play? How would you summarize the other person's perspective? Where are your places of agreement, and can you build on those? And identify some possible solutions that would close the gap between your differences. Remember, the goal is not to prevent conflict, but embrace it as a way to help your group grow and thrive. So let's talk about meetings. It's important to remember that meetings are still part of the bigger picture of how you manage people, projects, and performance. So they should align with your philosophy and style of management. Consider meetings as the time and place where you motivate and engage people with opportunities for autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Let's get into some specific considerations and strategies for leading productive meetings. I call these the 4 Ps of great meetings. First, get clear about the purpose. It's important to know what you hope to achieve. By getting clear on the outcome, you'll avoid scheduling unnecessary meetings. Meetings take a lot of forms, from one-on-one discussions to team project meetings to presentations for large groups of people. The form should always support the purpose. Consider these questions to help you get clear about the purpose. Is this session interactive or involve one-way communication? Is the goal to disseminate information to a group of people or have people share information with each other? Do you need to work together to identify the source of a problem and brainstorm solutions? Will you be engaging in decision-making? And do you need to gain commitment for a course of action? Next, choose the people. Obviously, invite the people that need to be there to accomplish the purpose. Not everyone needs to be in every meeting, so be thoughtful about who you invite. In order to prepare, you'll want to think about these issues. Will the participants know each other? What are their personalities? Are they likely to be competitive or collaborative? What will distract them? And what will they need to know in order to fully participate? Third, prepare for the meeting. As the person who called the meeting, you're responsible for getting everything ready. This includes several pieces. Pick the best day, time, and place that's most conducive to accomplishing your goal. Next, create an agenda. It allows you to outline what the meeting will cover and how information will flow. It's best to use action verbs like approve and decide. If people will be leading or speaking at various parts of the agenda, indicate their names. And if you're worried about staying on time, you can even indicate how many minutes are allotted. If your meeting is part of an ongoing series, build in a small portion of time to discuss past items and future items, but leave the majority of time for the current issues at hand. Also, it's a good idea to think about the workload of the meeting. Open the meeting with something light to get everyone settled and warmed up. Then get into the heavy lifting of the meeting, where you accomplish the bigger tasks, and end with a wrap-up. Distribute your agenda to people in advance, allowing ample time if they need to prepare something. The fourth P is design a process for facilitating the meeting. It should align with the outcome you hope to achieve and the needs of the participants you've invited. For some of you, your meetings will be governed by Robert's Rules of Order, a formal system often used in government or board meetings. But if not, here are some general guidelines to consider. Start and end on time. This shows that you respect the participants. Begin the meeting by reviewing the agenda and doing introductions if people don't know each other. Use some tools to keep the discussion on track. One option is called the bounce back. If people go off topic, acknowledge it and say that's a great topic for us to address at another time, but let's refocus on the current discussion. Some people like to use the parking lot, where you place topics and suggestions that you want to visit later. You may also use the talking clock, where you say things like, Lisa will give her report in the next 3 minutes, or we have 2 minutes left to discuss this agenda item. If you have decisions to make, consider how you'll vote on them. Will you use majority wins, weighted scoring, and will votes be public or private? The most important part of your role is to foster constructive group participation. Consider how you can get people engaged in the process. Ask open-ended questions like the ones from the Clarity Coaching model we discussed in an earlier video. Throughout the meeting, summarize main points and identify action steps of who will do what and by when. Conclude the meeting by having a closing round for comments. And follow up by sending out notes or minutes directly to members or posting online in an appropriate place. Meetings are a necessary part of the work world, but by using the 4 Ps, purpose, people, preparation, and process, you can create meetings that are both productive and engaging. Let's take a look at some of the key traits of each generation. Generational dynamics play out every day, and as a manager, it will serve you to know more. A generation is a society-wide peer group who collectively possess shared values, attitudes, worldviews, and even behaviors. Generations are shaped by a series of forces like family life, education, media, and world events. Generations occur in every country and culture, but are unique to that cultural context. Let me issue a warning about generational research. It's broad brushstrokes about a group of people, but not necessarily true about each individual in that generation. I want you to take this all with a very large grain of salt. Ultimately, managing the generations is really a continuation of our earlier conversations. You want to find ways to motivate and engage your people in meaningful ways. To do this, use the following strategies. First, understand and appreciate generational differences and strengths. Second, focus on engaging each individual. While knowing trends can be helpful, it can also lead to inaccurate assumptions. Get to know your people and what matters to them. Third, be flexible. Generation is only one aspect of your people's identities. Their values, cultures, and life experiences also play key roles. There's no one way of managing that works in every setting, so embrace all that diversity brings. Fourth, tend to natural tensions. As you learn about generational differences, you can see where conflict may arise. This will help you know how and when to smooth out potential miscommunications or misunderstandings. Finally, harness and maximize strengths by providing training and coaching. If you focus on helping each person maximize their potential, you'll naturally bring out the best in everyone. Also, consider how you can create mentoring partnerships so that your people use their own strengths to help each other grow. Managing millennials is a hot topic in today's organizations. Millennials are the largest generation, and as they move through their life, they're changing all of the major institutions. A lot of research has been done on millennials, more than any previous generation. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. All of this attention has certainly helped us learn more about the different generations, which is useful as we shift to models of management based on engaging and motivating people. But it also brings a false sense of attention to natural workplace dynamics. For example, is it a millennial thing to want work flexibility? Or is that more a function of chronological age and life stage? And sure, millennials have been shaped by technology and the internet, but is that really much different than when the phone replaced letter writing or cars replaced horses? Today, millennials make up 25% of the workplace, and this will continue to expand. The front edge are approaching mid-career, while the back end of the cohort is entering high school. However, millennials are known for many positive traits, including their optimism, the ability to multitask, and their focus on achieving goals. They were raised on technology and can easily learn new devices and social media outlets. Because of the power of the internet, they have a global worldview and a commitment to equality. They also care deeply about making a difference and serving their communities. We will also see more and more millennials step into leadership roles. In fact, they're already there. Millennials hold a quarter to one-half of managerial positions in the US, and many have become entrepreneurs. There are a few famous millennials who are CEOs of today's most successful companies. Millennials differ in their leadership style from boomers and Gen Xers. Millennials set broad and challenging targets related to a meaningful purpose. They prefer flat reporting structures and allow a lot of individual freedom. They build workplaces that are creative and inclusive, and they actively engage and motivate their people. To maximize the contributions that millennials can make to your organization, consider using the following strategies. First, focus on how they can make a difference. Make sure you communicate the meaningful purpose your organization serves and how their role contributes to its success. Second, team millennials up with other bright, creative people. This transcends age. Millennials love working collaboratively and excel in cross-functional relationships. They also enjoy being mentored. Third, give millennials opportunities to visualize the role they could play. They're motivated by having a sense of their potential career path, so you can engage them through professional development opportunities. Fourth, harness their focus on goal achievement. They thrive in outcome-based environments where they can set clear goals and measure progress. Finally, have millennials mentor others on technology, social media, and diversity. They really shine in these areas and can help everyone on your team. If you make the right management choices, millennials will help you maximize a wide range of opportunities that will benefit your organization. When you hear the phrase managing up, what do you think of? It probably depends on your manager. If you have a competent boss who's a good leader, you probably see managing up as a positive way to align with them so that you both achieve more. And if you're under a boss who has some professional or personal dysfunction, you probably see managing up as trying to minimize the impact that dysfunction has on you. No matter which situation you're in, here are some strategies you can use to work the most effectively with your manager. The first strategy is to gather information. You already have a lot of information about your manager that will guide your choices and actions. Think over the past few months and the different kinds of interactions you've had with your boss, like one-on-one meetings and conversations, department or team meetings, emails and phone calls, and documents such as reports and presentations. Next, use this information to determine your manager's priorities. How do they communicate their priorities through words and actions? Where do they focus their time and energy? Think about the position they hold and how it relates to the organization's success. What are their top 5 goals, and how is their success being measured? Also look at the org chart. Who does your boss report to? What do you know about their relationship? Is it positive and supportive or critical and demanding? Make a list of the priorities and pressures your boss is likely dealing with. Given the context and culture they work in, see if you can identify their fears and concerns. All of this gives you the big picture of your boss's work life. Now let's see how yours relates to theirs. Look over your own tasks and priorities. How does your work align with your boss's priorities? Where and how can you contribute to your boss achieving their goals? And how might you be able to support them by alleviating their fears and concerns? You may not be able to solve all these issues, but you certainly don't want to be making them worse. Use their priorities to guide how you determine yours. That way you won't be working at cross purposes. Third, match their communication style. We all process information differently, but it's imperative that you match your communication style to your boss's. You can learn about their style by reviewing how they communicate with you and others. Here are some questions to consider. How often do they communicate? And do they prefer written communication or face-to-face conversations? How does your boss make a decision? Do they follow a linear, step-by-step process focusing on what's logical? Or do they take a more values-based approach that takes into account how people might feel? What kind of data does your boss prefer? Do they like data that's verifiable facts and concrete details? Or do they prefer data that's conceptual and theoretical? The goal here is to match your boss's communication style and give them information that matches their preferences for data and decision-making. Also consider things like how they communicate in one-on-one settings through email and at meetings. This is not likely to change, so consider how you can ask questions or use additional sources of information to give you what you need to be successful in your work. Fourth, consider how your boss garners power. Garnering power is how we navigate the often unpredictable landscapes of our workplaces. All of us garner power in some way. Some of us do it through building relationships based on trust and respect. Others garner power by controlling the flow of information or holding on to decision-making power. Your goal here is to make sure that you're not inadvertently threatening your boss's power. Fifth, seek help if you're seriously concerned. If you feel that your boss's behavior is doing harm to your organization, you need to speak up. It's always a good idea to broach the subject first with your boss, expressing your concerns as clearly as you can. If they don't respond, then you may need to take further action. This might include talking with someone in HR or talking with your boss's supervisor. And many organizations have a process for reporting concerns through a whistleblower policy. You may even be protected by government regulations. Learn more at whistleblowers.gov. Your focus should be what is in the best interest of your organization. Finally, and most importantly, be someone your boss can count on. Ultimately, to manage up effectively, you need to establish trust with your boss. Have integrity with your words and actions. Step up with solutions, not just problems, and support their success in all that you do. As you build trust, your boss will be more likely to seek your input and consider you for other opportunities. It will also create an environment where they're more likely to hear constructive feedback from you and respect your needs and requests. Managing up takes time, but in the long run, it will benefit not only your current professional role, but your career as well. With today's technology, it's likely that you have employees working remotely. Nearly 2/3 of U.S. companies give employees workplace flexibility. This can range from the colleague who works from home a few days per year to the employee who permanently lives and works in another geographic location. You may even lead virtual teams with members spread around the globe. A lot of wonderful tools make this all possible. File sharing and cloud-based tools make it easy for people to work on projects and documents together without actually being together. Email, instant messaging, and video calls have turned our phones and computers into high-powered communication devices that can cross continents and time zones. While all of this leads to enhanced productivity, it can also lead to some challenges for today's manager. Let's explore some methods you can use for maximizing the benefits while mitigating the risks. Set people up for success with the right technology. Remote employees can only be successful if the technology works. You need to outfit your people with the right tools, including internet access, computers or laptops, and software. Make sure that they have what they need, and develop a schedule for keeping everything up to date. Measure work by deliverables rather than activities. Since it will be harder for you to observe people actually working, you need to shift your focus to the results of their efforts. Focus on outcomes or products. This shift should be addressed in your performance management process in terms of how goals are set and how and when you measure success. Focus on communication and inclusion. One of the pitfalls of remote employees is they can miss a lot of the spontaneous communication that occurs when people gather near the copier or coffee machine. Encourage both the local and remote employees to use tools like instant messaging and video calls to include people in the informal exchanges that occur every day. Also, consider how you can include your remote employees in the culture of the organization. Whenever you have something for the local employees, see how you can create a mirror for your remote people. You can certainly include them in on-site trainings and events by making remote viewing possible. But what about the birthday celebration for a colleague? Consider bringing a laptop so they can attend via video. Or what about the family day at the local zoo? Send them tickets to the zoo in their town. Help them create a healthy work-life balance. Research has shown that remote employees tend to put in more hours than their local peers. This is both good and bad news. It means that you don't have to worry about them goofing off, but you do need to worry that they'll overwork, which can lead to burnout. Discuss how they'll monitor their work time so they don't overdo it. And also have them create a dedicated workspace so they keep work separate from their home life. Our home should be where we go and relax at the end of the workday, not a place that reminds us of work. Let's turn our attention to virtual teams, where you have several employees working together from different locations. This is also known as dispersion, and there are actually different types of dispersion. Each type requires different kinds of guidance or support, and some teams are combinations of several types. First, you have people that are geographically dispersed. This can be as close as different buildings on a campus to offices scattered around the world. The amount of distance matters, as farther distances make it impossible to just pop by for a face-to-face discussion. Second, you have temporally separated teams, meaning that people are in different time zones. This often means that work cannot occur synchronously, but is always offset by several hours. This can create challenges because all communication is mediated through written words like email, losing valuable nonverbal cues. Another level of dispersion is inequality in the configuration. For example, if you have 4 people in one location, working with 2 people in another. This can start to create a clique, if you will, of the people who work near each other because they share experiences, communication, and even culture. And of course, you have cultural diversity. People from different regions, countries, cultures, and languages may not produce or perceive work in the same ways. The behaviors that indicate trust and respect in one culture can be offensive in another. Add to this the additional barriers of language, and then communication mediated through email, and you have a situation that's ripe for misunderstandings and conflict. The solution to all of these challenges is communication and training. As a manager, you need to provide tools for communication, and even set standards for how and when it should be done. Dispersed teams benefit from training on how to work in a dispersed environment. This should include an opportunity for members to get to know each other and build trust. This goes a long way to mediating conflict when it does arise. Also, consider appointing someone as the facilitator of the group process. This is separate from the task they're accomplishing together. This person would keep an eye on the issues we've discussed, helping the group successfully navigate the challenges. As a manager, be open to learning from your experiences with remote employees and dispersed teams. This will help you make adjustments over time that will improve the experience for everyone involved. Being a manager means you manage a lot of things. We've already covered all the ways you'll manage people and their performance. Now we're going to look at how you manage the business. This includes making decisions, overseeing projects, complying with key policies and regulations, and also managing the budget. The first place we need to start is how you manage your time. Being a manager is really a juggling act. You must keep a lot of balls in the air at the same time. Your first priority is having a method for managing your time so that you can attend to each of the important things you oversee without exhausting yourself or burning out. I'd like to add the following tips. First, really focus on what is true about you. Managing your time starts with you and how you, and only you, interact with time. This includes when you're at your best for certain types of tasks. For example, my mind is sharpest in the morning from 8 to noon. That's the best time for me to do activities that require a lot of thinking, like writing or designing training sessions. Another thing to consider is how long you can focus without a break, and how long of a break you need before you're fresh again. There are no right answers, but there are the answers that are true for you. Second, explore the different components of time management. People often think that time management is just about clocks and calendars, but it's really about managing all the things that take your time. This means that you need to look at managing your email, scheduling your calendar, and even files, papers, and notes. Third, create a system that supports how you really work. Once you know more about yourself, choose or design a system that supports you. The only criteria is that it helps you be more focused and effective. Finally, and perhaps the most importantly, learn how to say no, or at least not now. A big part of managing your time includes protecting it. All the wonderful intentions and systems will go out the door if you continue to pile things on your already full plate. So one of your key strategies is to control the flow of things that you take on. This can be especially challenging if you have a hard time disappointing people. I encourage you to create your own list and practice them out loud until you get more comfortable saying them. That way, you'll be ready when someone is standing in front of you with a request. Together, all of these strategies will help you be at your best so you can manage others with style and grace. Another part of your role as manager is keeping track of projects, both your own and your team's. Just like managing your time, you'll want to establish a system for tracking the progress of your projects. Because projects involve a lot of people, use the strategies we've covered in previous chapters about managing team performance, addressing conflict, and having productive meetings. Again, there are a lot of systems and strategies you can choose from, and you'll want to find something that supports how you work and meets the needs of your organization. There are some industry standards that may govern your choices, such as the Scrum model used with software development. And some organizations have invested in certain procedures or systems, thereby determining what you'll be doing. If that's the case, you'll want to get up to speed as quickly as you can. And make sure that your team has the training and support they need to use the system effectively too. Ultimately, project management relies heavily on your ability to plan and organize work. You'll be orchestrating multiple activities and establishing courses of action to ensure that work is completed efficiently. Project management is also a group effort, so you need to find a system that will meet your team's needs and that you can all use correctly and consistently. Here are key things for you to consider. First, how are you tracking your projects? You'll need to quickly and easily identify where any project stands. This includes timing and whether it's on track to meet milestones and deadlines. Second, how will you assess the quality of work? A project completed on time is not really an accomplishment if the work is substandard. How can you assess the quality of work and make necessary adjustments? Third, how do you stay within budget? I'll cover managing budgets in an upcoming video, but part of project management is making sure that your project is completed within its budget. One of the tensions that many managers face with project management is known as the quality triangle. This essentially states that the quality of a project is a function of three things. 1, how big the project is or its scope. 2, how much time you have to complete the project. And 3, the budget you've been given, or the costs of the project, which includes staffing. Also known as the triple constraint, this triangle illustrates that most organizations want their teams to produce stuff that is good, fast, and cheap. The theory of the quality triangle is that you can only get 2 of the 3. If you want it fast and good, it will cost more. If you want it fast and cheap, then the quality will not be as good. Or if you want it cheap and good, then it will take longer. There's an ongoing discussion about the validity of this model between project managers and the leaders of organizations. You may find yourself in the middle of this discussion, so part of project management will require you to not only understand these elements, but communicate effectively about them. And that brings us to communication skills. At the heart of project management is your ability to communicate up and down the organization. You'll need to be able to accurately and quickly share information to those above and below you, often acting as a translator and mediator. As a result, you need to become well-versed in speaking and writing clearly. You'll also need a system for tracking communication, knowing when information has been sent and received, as well as identifying when people are not on the same page. Take the time to learn and hone your project management and communication skills. This will not only set you up for success, but will set you apart from your peers. Another key aspect of managing the business includes understanding your role in the budgetary process. Whether you work for a small business or a large corporation, learning to manage your budget is a vital skill that you'll want to master as early as possible. And here's why. If your team is successful in achieving its goals but always goes over budget, you create financial problems for your organization. But your career will thrive if you're the manager who stays within their budget and even looks for ways to reduce costs and drive efficiencies. Managing the budget means that you authorize expenses in accordance with the budget that was submitted and approved. And you continually monitor the amount of spending to ensure that you do not exceed the budget. To successfully manage your budget, I recommend using the following strategies. First, be informed about financial matters. You want to learn about business budgets in general and your organization in particular. There's some common terms and practices that are widely used, and then there are things that are specific to your situation. For example, there are generally 2 types of budgets for expenses or money that's spent. Capital expenditures are any costs related to the physical space, like rent and electricity, and equipment such as copiers, desks, and computers. These are generally items that are used for more than a year. And the operating budget are the expenses affiliated with the day-to-day running of the organization, such as payroll, supplies, travel, and professional development. Organizations also track income or revenue. This is the money that comes in through sales, grants, and other sources. Revenue is continually analyzed, comparing predicted income to what actually comes in, and adjusting the budget accordingly. This means that in some organizations, budgets are very fluid and can be augmented or cut as the year unfolds, while others are firm and don't adjust at all once they're set. Most organizations have an annual budget that is broken down into quarters and then further into months and sometimes weeks. Obviously, you'll want to know what is true for the budget you manage. And this is why it's so important to understand the specifics of your budget, the second strategy. You'll want to ask questions like, how much is the budget? What expenses have been predicted and what data was used to predict them? Is the budget firm or will it be adjusted? If so, when? And how and when do I submit my budget for next year? Third, have a system for tracking your budget. This may already be set up and you just need to learn how to log in and use the system. But if you work at a smaller organization, you may be working from spreadsheets, entering receipts as you go. The most important thing is to have a way to know where your budget stands on a month-to-month basis. This might be something that you maintain yourself or delegate to an employee. Just remember that you are ultimately responsible for the budget, so you still need to review their work in case they've made a mistake. Believe me, it happens. Fourth, adhere to the policies and procedures at your organization. Generally, the larger the organization, the more formal and complex the budget process is. There can be a range of approval processes, forms to file, and supporting documents to submit. In addition, if your organization works with any public funding, there will be very specific stipulations about how money can be spent. For example, entertainment and travel expenses often have an elaborate pre-approval process that can take weeks. Or you may be required to seek bids from several suppliers through a formal purchasing process. When you manage a budget, it's expected that you adhere to these policies and procedures, whether or not you're provided training. It's assumed that you will seek out the guidance you need to be in compliance. Which brings us to our fifth and perhaps most important strategy. Actively seek out training opportunities. Your organization might offer formal training on the budget process, and if so, you definitely want to take advantage of that. If not, you can also support your own success by asking your supervisor or a colleague in the finance department to walk you through what you need to know. There's some great books on business management, and many community colleges also have business courses available to the public. Managing the budget may seem daunting at first, but these strategies will help you become more comfortable. And you'll reap a side benefit of being a better manager of your own personal funds at home. It is vital that you know and understand various laws and regulations that apply to employment. As a manager, you play a very important role in protecting the rights of your employees and mitigating risk for the organization. Over the years, employment laws have gotten more and more complex at both state and federal levels, and they cover a wide range of employment-related topics, including wages and hours worked, safety and health standards, health benefits, retirement, and non-discrimination based on a range of identities such as race, sexual orientation, national origin, and service in the military. And that's just a few. You've probably heard of some of the laws, like the Fair Labor Standards Act, or the Family and Medical Leave Act. But what about the Employee Retirement Income Security Act? It governs employee benefit plans. Or did you know that whistleblower laws are actually administered by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, and protects 17 different employment statuses? If you want to blow your mind, just take a stroll through the Department of Labor's website. Additional laws and regulations fall under the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC. For example, laws governing the prevention of sexual harassment mandate that employers must provide training and have a clear policy for processing complaints. And the Americans with Disabilities Act governs all kinds of employment issues, from recruiting to hiring, through training and movement through the organization. If you're feeling overwhelmed at this point, you're normal. It can all be very daunting. Luckily, you're not expected to know all of this on your own. You'll be helped by your colleagues in human resources. Depending on the size of your organization, this may be one person or it could be an entire department of professionals. While often your HR team will be internal employees, companies also utilize contracted experts to support HR processes. Either way, you want to pay attention to any information you receive from HR and also adhere to any requests they make as soon as you can. And thank them too. They actually work very hard to make sure that your organization is not exposed to risks and that you're not exposed to lawsuits yourself. Throughout the year, you'll get many different requests from HR. This is because key legal cases continually affect what compliance means and how and when it should occur. There are stipulations about how and when employees are notified, and as the manager, you play a role in that. Sometimes HR will send you information via email with an action for you to take that has a deadline. Sometimes you'll be required to attend mandatory training sessions. And there'll be lots of stipulations around documentation, like how you submit payroll or vacation requests, and how you document employee performance issues. While these requests may feel like they detract from your busy work schedule, they're actually some of the most important work that you do. So please take it seriously. Failure to respond or act on your part can not only put the organization in jeopardy of fines and lawsuits, it can also affect your career. As a manager, you're responsible for making sure that you and your employees adhere to these various policies and procedures. So take the time to form a positive working relationship with your colleagues in HR and be the manager they know they can count on. Every day, you'll be making business decisions, some of which can have major implications for your organization. Not every day has make it or break it moments, but collectively, all of your choices either contribute to or detract from the success of your people and the organization. This is actually the exciting part of management. You get to have more responsibility, and along with it comes more influence as well. Decision-making is the ability to identify and analyze information, draw conclusions, identify appropriate solutions, and choose a course of action. It often requires you to take the initiative and also innovate new possibilities and opportunities. Managers who make good business decisions often have a few key things in common. First, they tend to be emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence is how effectively we manage ourselves and our relationships. It's comprised of 20 competencies, including self-control, achievement drive, communication, and managing conflict, all skills that are needed to make successful decisions. Second, they actively develop their business acumen. All decisions are made within the context of the organization, so being able to accurately read and navigate the nuances of power and politics are key to successful decisions. Business acumen is also knowing the forces that shape your organization and industry, including trends, policies, technology, and people. Third, they actively seek opportunities to provide leadership. As you learned in the first chapter, management and leadership are two different skill sets. While you can keep your focus on the immediate demands of management, good business decisions often require looking forward. Finally, managers who make good business decisions find the right balance between caution and taking risks. Sometimes good decisions are all about timing. You want to take enough time to gather good information and think through potential consequences, but not so long that you miss important opportunities. Unfortunately, there's no magic formula for how to do this. It's a judgment call that's completely contextual to your organization and the situation at hand. However, if you develop the skills and competencies we've covered in this video, you'll be armed with what you need to be successful. By taking your time to assess the situation and think through potential consequences, you'll set yourself up for success. And by collaborating with others in your organization, you can harness their wisdom and gain their support. Wow, I told you management was a juggling act. Between managing people, their performance in the business, you have a lot to do. But your organization has confidence in you. Otherwise, they would not have given you this responsibility. Management is definitely something where you learn on the job. So take a deep breath, roll up your sleeves, and dive in. As you grow and learn as a manager, you'll get better at each of the skills we've covered in this course. Since being a manager takes a lot of time and energy, let's talk about my favorite strategies for keeping you at your best. First, it's important to find ways to pace yourself. It takes time to develop your competency as a manager, and it won't happen overnight. Review the assessment you filled out and design a professional development plan. If you focus on one new skill per month, you can accomplish a lot in a year. Second, take care of yourself so that you're in good shape to manage others. This means both physically and emotionally. Third, build a network of other managers. It can be really helpful if you have peers, both inside and outside your organization, whom you can turn to for support. Managing can be challenging, and you need confidants whom you can trust and who can also share their experiences. I also recommend that you have a mentor. This person should hold a position you aspire to have someday, and who's willing to provide advice and guidance. Finally, remember that your people are the ultimate reflection of your skills as a manager. Their successes are yours, so invest in motivating and engaging them and helping them reach their highest potential. This will not only help the organization achieve its goals, but will demonstrate that you're ready for higher levels of opportunity. You've already done a lot of great work by watching this course and using these practices, so keep going, you're on the right track.